Howdy folks, Kevin here. Just wanted to give a quick intro to this video. This is the first video that I've put together on my course update to my WebDriver IO course. So this video is going to be about what is UI automation, what is UI test automation, why you'd want to do it, and why you wouldn't want to do it, some alternatives to it, things like that. And I just wanted to publish this out there on YouTube because I haven't been making too many updates to my YouTube channel recently, mainly because I've been working on this course. I also finished my Web App Testing Guidebook, so check that out if you are interested in a book all about how to test web applications using WebDriver IO. Anyway, so this course, I've started putting the videos together, and it's going to be kind of based on the book itself. I don't have anything for sale right now because I just don't have enough videos done, but I should, I'm hoping to get 10-15 videos done that kind of go through the introduction to WebDriver IO and introduction to UI testing and all that kind of stuff, so that y'all can take a look at it. And I will have it for sale at a discounted rate. And I think I'm going to do 3 different modules. I guess I'll call them modules. So basically, it'll all be part of the big book, the big web app testing book that I'm converting to a course. But it'll just be split up into 3 sections. That way you don't have to wait for me to get all the videos out for you to start accessing the content. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this video. Let me know what you think in the comments below. And until next time, have fun testing. I mentioned test automation isn't new, but I didn't explain what it is. Well, test automation is a lot of things. There are multitudes of programs and tools surrounding it, not to mention the ideologies about testing in general. For example, test-driven development versus behavior-driven development. There's also many different types of tests. While we're focusing solely on UI automation, there's also unit, integration, performance, accessibility, usability, you name it, testing. All of these are important to know about and can provide as much or more value than UI testing. So why focus on UI testing? Well, you don't really have an option. Just as you can't skip accessibility testing if you want to have a site that's accessible, you can't skip UI testing if you don't want to have a site that's broken. Truthfully, we're already doing tons of UI testing. Every time someone loads a page, they're testing the UI. When they click that button, does it make that thing happen? When they use a mobile device, does the site fit on a small screen? If you have a site in production, every user you have is testing your user interface. Hopefully for them, and for you, they're not the first ones to try it out. UI testing is constantly being done, just in a very labor-intensive way. Front-end developers working on the code will spend half their day in the browser manually testing if their changes worked. If they're testing in an older browser, it'll be 3/4 their day. UI testing is the simple task of validating that the code written for the browser actually works in that browser, along with all the other components that went into that web page. And UI test automation is a way to convert those manual mouse clicks and keystrokes into coded scripts that we can run on a regular basis. So let's talk about some benefits of UI testing. We'll do this by running through a few real-world scenarios in which UI testing can really help. Story 1. Jamie, your ace front-end developer, just finished their latest task and is itching to release it. While they were careful to validate that the new functionality works, unfortunately they forgot to test whether the new code broke the zip code widget on the contact page. Lucky for you, the UI automation test caught the error, and a fix was in place before the end of the day, and more importantly, before the code was released to production. Taylor is an awesome full-stack developer. They've got everything about their coding environment fine-tuned so that they can focus solely on pumping out new features. Except for one thing though. Taylor always forgets to check their code in slower, outdated computers. That's okay though, as our UI tests are configured to run on a variety of setups, and it just so happens that it caught the issue that occurs when it's running inside of a Windows 8 environment. Casey is a great product manager, but sometimes forgets to clarify the small details. This means developers can make the wrong assumptions during development, which is only discovered by Casey during project demos. By adding automated tests to the mix, developers and project managers are pushed to have regular conversations on the desired effect of the functionality, resulting in fewer confusion later on. Avery is a superb QA tester. With great attention to detail, Avery always thinks of unique ways in which the website will be seen. Unfortunately, manually testing these edge cases takes a large amount of time to get in place. By adding automated scripts, Avery is able to programmatically generate the needed data to run the test and allow them to run these tests on a regular basis. Now, these are just a few ways that test automation can help. I skipped over many of the other benefits for the sake of time, but there is one I didn't include on purpose. Many folks claim that UI tests allow you to have fewer developers or testers. While that could be the outcome of automation, I don't think it's a valid argument. In the scenarios above, having an extra human around wouldn't really help. That's because humans have blind spots, and many of them are the same. Teams have collective blind spots, and that's difficult to get around. We naturally tend to focus on what's in front of us, forgetting about the realities outside our own influence. UI testing isn't about replacing humans, but rather augmenting their abilities. We use automation to shore up our limitations, allowing us to focus on our strengths. For example, developers waste their time testing on hundreds of different devices when they could instead let the computer do that part of work. Your QA team wastes time running through the same scenario week after week when instead they could be thinking about new, undiscovered test cases. UI automation isn't about replacing humans with machines, but rather giving us more freedom to work better than the machines. And let's not forget, UI testing requires a fair amount of work. It's not magic. And this brings me to an important consideration. How long do you think it takes to get a set of automated tests up and running? A week? Maybe 2? Sure, if all you want to do is test that a page loads properly. But websites are incredibly complex. The number of features we jam on a page grows each day. Consider a simple homepage. Here are some things you're going to want to test on it. Do all the parts look right on the laptop, tablet, or phone screen? Does the site navigation work? Does the hidden menu show after you click the menu icon? Does the carousel on the home page rotate correctly? Does the autocomplete in the site search bar work? Okay, I'll stop there. Hopefully you get my point that there's a lot to test, even on a single page. A basic script that loads a page doesn't provide much reassurance. So, if you want to test all your functionality on all your pages, you're going to have to write a lot of code. Covering all that ground takes time that could be spent on other, possibly more important tasks. As you're writing test after test, the website you're testing is going to keep changing. New features and fixes will be continuously introduced. The same feature will be tweaked again and again, causing your once solid test suite to mysteriously start failing. When the glorious day comes and you're done writing tests, you'll still have to maintain them. Now, there are ways to write tests to make them more maintainable, and we'll cover that throughout the examples. But there's no such thing as a future-proof test. You're always going to need to update it. There's one more important point to consider. While you breeze through some parts of test writing, expect to sink 80% of your time trying to figure out how to test that special 20% of your site's functionality. There are many areas of writing tests that aren't trivial. It's not as simple as calling the command to fill out a text box and click the submit button. You'll need to work with databases, integrate with third-party services, and see if you can get commands to work in browsers with poor automation support. You're also going to run into instances where the way the website was coded just doesn't jibe with test automation. Animations are a good example of this. How do you test that an animation works? You can fairly easily check the properties before and after an animation, but what about everything between those two states? Honestly, you'd need to do a screen recording of every frame of the animation and compare that screen recording to a previous run to see if they match. I don't know about you, but that doesn't sound easy to me. If you find yourself facing a complex site that would require major work to test properly, there are other options to gain some value without too much effort. Instead of testing a fully working site, you may want to create a variation of your site that represents portions of the real thing. For example, pattern libraries are a popular option out there, especially for larger websites. In case you're not familiar with them, pattern libraries are essentially living demos of the components that make up a website's interface. MailChimp has a public pattern library if you'd like to see it in action. For instance, a pattern library may contain standalone versions of the following: components used across multiple pages like buttons, form inputs, and tabs, site layout components like the main navigation and site footer, style guidelines for simple page elements like links, headings, and lists. Pattern libraries are very helpful for teams to document how the website should look and act. If you're tasked with adding a sortable table to your company site, having a pattern library with a living example of one makes the job simpler. They're also useful for testers, as it gives us a testable example of individual components isolated from the complexity of the full website. Hopefully, I haven't scared you away from UI testing entirely. I only wanted to get you thinking about the whole picture. And that picture should include saying, maybe we shouldn't write test automation. At least not yet. Let's consider a few things when new features aren't user tested. So, say business is booming and your team is tasked with a brand new feature idea that management thinks the customer will love. While it's tempting to say, yes, and let's write tests to go side by side with this new feature, it might not be the right time. This brand new feature has never seen the light of day, and the second a customer sees it, there's going to be something about it they don't like. If the decision is made to rework the concept based on the customer feedback, all those tests you've written are going to be useless. There's no point in writing a test if you haven't user tested your website. So before you spend your time writing assertions, ensure the assumptions about the user interactions are initially put to the test. Time writing tests takes away from writing features. You're not paid to write tests. Tests only serve the application they're testing. If an app is useless, tests won't help. If you're working on a side project for a tool that no one uses, spending time writing tests takes away from time spent on more important tasks, like getting people to use your work. Users don't care whether you have good unit tests. There's no difference between an unused tool and an unused unit-tested tool. Let yourself have untested code. Worry about that problem when it actually becomes one. Tests are only valuable when you use them. Don't write more tests when you're not using the ones you already have. If you have 500 UI tests, but never put in the time to integrate them into your build and deployment process, you have 500 useless tests. Writing 500 more won't help. Your tests should run on every code push. They should run before every deploy. Every developer on the team should see that the test passed or failed. If that's not true, you shouldn't be writing more tests. You should be taking advantage of the tests you already have. Parts of the site might be better tested by people. Remember when I said tests shouldn't replace people, but rather augment their abilities? Well, in the scenario of testing an animation, we were stuck with a really complex solution. What if we just went with manually testing visually the effect? It's okay to have some parts of your site that are too complex for automation. Grab that low-hanging fruit and leave the stuff higher on the tree for a later time when you have a ladder. So, are tests worth it then? I've outlined the benefits and drawbacks of test automation, including reasons to entirely skip some of it altogether. So, how do you ensure you're getting more benefits than drawbacks? Well, focus on these two goals. Ensure you're getting value out of every test you write, and ensure you're selling that value to those in charge. It's really easy to get caught up in automation, trying to cover every nook and cranny of the site. But if a feature of your site doesn't provide much value, how much less value would a test for that feature be? The site login component breaking, that's bad. The site's about page having a typo, not such a big deal. Sure, we'd want to fix it, but it won't really cost the company that much money. By focusing on gaining and selling that value, you can keep yourself honest in your test writing and focus on what's important, having a site that's running smoothly and providing value to the user.